properly, and you want it to generalize. And what does generalize mean? Does what happened in the experiment represent real life, or is it a fake? And how do you increase generalizability? How? More people in the experiment, more locations, more different places, and so forth. You can be assured that your results apply to more people. If we only did it once, it might be only for people that are descriptive of you. So, okay, what's the best generalized experiment? Do it on everybody. Of course, you'll never finish, you'll never get enough money, and you'll never reach a conclusion. Remember, you got to perform the experiment exactly the same time, over and over. You got to get the same result. You got to collect the data. It's got to be metric. You have to analyze it for significance. And it's got to be 0.01 or 0.001. And remember, you've got to keep repeating it. And then finally, you've got to state a conclusion. And you can only state what you did. And if you're a scientist, what do you want? You want to reject your null. Not accept it. Accept says what you think is happening doesn't happen. Caffeine, my hypothesis was caffeine causes students under stress to do poorly. My null is that caffeine has no effect on student test scores. So I want to reject that with proof. Statistical proof. And remember, if you didn't discover a significant difference between the results of your test group and your control group, what have you learned? Nothing. You can't say, but one number was a little bit bigger. Now you can say that doesn't work. But you can't say anything else. And then, remember, don't be like me. Don't piss off the people that are on the committees that decide who gets published. Because you'll never get published. If you discover a cure for cancer and you can't get it published, what did you discover?
Nothing.
Nothing. Alright. And so that takes us to the next word in our definition, where we stopped, and that was study. Remember, we were doing the definitions. An organized, systematic, so we just finished the scientific method, which is under the word systematic. The next word is study. What is a study? The word biology means study of life. O-L-O-G-Y means study of. Study means a search for every piece of information ever discovered about that topic. All knowledge.
Could we just write all knowledge?
Everything. Everything ever published, everything ever concluded, everything ever proven about a subject.
No, for the paper, would all knowledge work?
Yeah. And then remember, this word is very, very misused in our society today. You are told, especially anybody ever stay up late and watch the infomercials and all that stuff, and maybe have a couple glasses of wine and start ordering stuff. My mother, my sister, she calls it buying while drunk. And she'll actually, she's actually bought a timeshare on a condo late at night after a bottle of wine. We always try to tell her, Cindy, if you can't sleep, have the wine, but please don't turn on the infomercials. Alright, so in these infomercials, they tell you that if you buy Propecia, so they want it to make it sound like a medical drug, Propecia, for only $49.95, you can take this and you will grow hair even if you're bald. And if you don't believe them, they will cheerfully refund your money. You see, under the Reagan administration, remember, they repealed the Truth in Advertising Act, which said that if you advertise something, you had to have one peer-reviewed, respectable journal study proving what you said. And Mr. Reagan said that was bad for business. The buyer beware. If you're willing to buy it, we can charge anything we want. And we don't have to prove it does anything. And so, remember, there are lots of things that say natural, safe, has no chemicals, no side effects. Folks, anything that doesn't have chemicals, see that periodic chart of the elements? That's all matter. If it doesn't fall on there, it's called space, and that's empty. There is nothing without chemicals. And even water has a side effect. Try drinking 10 gallons. Everything has a side effect. There is nothing that's not made of chemicals. And just because they call it natural doesn't mean it's safe or good. The word natural only means one thing. From Mother Nature directly. Grows in the dirt. Not processed in any way. The strawberry grew in the dirt. You didn't do anything. You pulled it up and you ate it. That's natural.
Not even washed.
Huh? Alright, so natural means it comes from nature directly. But remember, the greatest toxins we know come from nature. I can walk you down to Vermont 101, take you down the steps, take you to the oleander bushes, strip off the leaves, hand you a weenie, say roast it, you eat it, you will go into convulsions and die. Oleander is beautiful, keeps down dust, we plant it all over our freeways, but if you eat it, you will die. Even if you just eat a marshmallow that's been roasted on a stick of oleander. Clostridium botulinum, the greatest toxins on earth. Very natural. The bacteria makes it. So natural does not mean non-toxic. So, the other words that you are often confused about is organic, California certified organic, USDA certified organic, food, and GMO food. Organic does not mean good for you, wonderful, non-toxic, great to eat. It means made of carbon. That's it. Of life made of carbon. There are 2 carbon compounds that are not organic. Anybody know what they are? Carbon monoxide is not made by any living thing, CO. And carbon tetrachloride is not made by any living thing, and it's dry cleaning fluid. Those are the only 2 compounds containing carbon that are not organic, made of carbon, and of life, made by a living thing, or a part of a living thing. That's all organic means. Made of carbon and part of or made by a living thing. Now, we are advertised and told that organic means no toxins, hormones, herbicides, pesticides, antibiotics, or fertilizers have ever put on this food product. Or this product you can actually buy organic clothing. None of that is possible. Now, California certified organic means that no pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or antibiotics are used in the production of this food product. But fertilizers can be. Remember, natural fertilizer is people poop.
I thought it was horse poop.
Or dog poop. That's natural fertilizer, and hardly anyone uses it because it's not very good, because bacteria and viruses can be transmitted through poop. So California certified is what you see at most farmers markets. They will have a certification hanging before their stand, a few things at Whole Foods. And what it means is California has sent a representative at random to the farm, and they have inspected it. And that once every 3 years, at random, they test the product by all chemical means, everything we know, to see if it has pesticides, herbicides, or anything like spectrum analysis. Yeah?
Yesterday you said it was 5.
It's 3 to 5 actually now. I looked it up, sorry. Damn it. All right.
Does every state have this?
No.
So just California?
Each state
like
sets their
country,
own.
or-
Each state sets their own. Like New York has its own rules. But there is no policeman in the farm, is there?
No.
No. But this is the most expensive, and if you're a person that worries about pesticides or herbicides getting in your body or hormones or antibiotics, then that would be the best you could buy that could be fairly confident. Now, I don't worry about any of those things except for antibiotics. I worry about antibiotics because the more we use them, the less they work for us. And if you're feeding them to chickens and cows and hogs to make them grow faster, it's not good for the environment, it's not good for you, and it can get in the meat. And there's a problem there for me. Herbicides and pesticides don't bother me. They're sprayed on the outside. Wash the darn thing if you're stupid. And so I'm not too worried, but that's why I usually try to buy this, because of only one thing: antibiotics. They're sprayed on, for instance, let's see, what's that? Asparagus. They spray asparagus with antibiotics. Why? It's easily bruised and bacteria can cause it to rot. So they spray the plants with antibiotics. So plants can even be treated with antibiotics. I don't know why they allow an agricultural use for antibiotics, but they do still. Now, USDA certified means they signed a statement. The farmer said, I don't use this stuff.
I'm alive.
And once every 5 years, at random, they check it, but they're 20 years behind.
Backlog.
Remember the salmonella egg problem
Yeah.
2 years ago? This Iowa producer of eggs that produces huge millions of eggs every day, who is USDA certified organic, killed a whole bunch of people because they didn't clean the poop out of their chicken houses. And they got salmonella in them, and the eggs got salmonella in them, and the farm had never been checked, and none of the produce had ever been checked because they hadn't got around to it yet. They're behind. And remember, when they check it, they don't use the latest chemical means. They use standard methods. Standard methods are way behind the best method to detect the least amount. So you're paying for virtually nothing with this.
This was 1 to 10 years.
Which one?
Checking for 1 to 10 years. Randomly checking.
Yeah, they randomly check somewhere in 5 years, but they're 10 to 20 years behind. Which means hardly anyone's checked. So if they say FDA certified, that just means you're paying extra for it. And some farmer said he did it that way. And then, of course, food, you have no idea about it at all, and that still doesn't bother me except for antibiotics. I go to Ralph's. I don't like to buy my produce there because it looks like good apples, smells like good apples, and you bite into them and they're sour. Or you buy a mushmelon there, cantaloupe, it looks like a cantaloupe, smells like a cantaloupe, says it's ripe, you open it up, you eat it, and it tastes like nothing. Almost every time I go to Trader Joe's, the fruit is California certified, and it's sweet for some reason. And if it isn't, you can take it back and they'll give you one that is. So that's why I usually get my fruit at Trader Joe's, because it's California certified.
What about your meat?
Meat, just
only
because I'm
place I
there,
buy my
I'll buy it at Trader Joe's. I still worry very much about antibiotics, and none of the regular markets really carry antibiotic free.
We go to McCall's up the street, that's where I go.
Where?
McCall's Meat and Fish. It's
They-
expensive, but they know all their farmers. And
They guarantee no hormones and no
it's
antibiotics?
like,
That's good to
your
know.
cow's name was Bob, and he ate this.
Okay, the last one is genetically modified food. Now, genetic modification of food is for two reasons. One, to make it ship better. That's the main reason. Number two, to make it taste better. Remember, they don't care what it tastes like now, because you buy it. And three, they actually add vitamins to it. Like, for instance, a lot of people where rice is a staple of their diet, it's the main thing they eat, they get very little vitamin A, and they have horrible vitamin A deficiencies.
Is that classified as GMO or fortified?
Hmm?
Is that considered
Fortified
GMO or
means you
fortified?
grow it the normal way and you add vitamins afterward.
Oh.
GMO means you insert a gene that makes this,
So the vitamin A rice
is genetically modified. And they plant it in Vietnam, and it's really helped with nutritional disorder. I like that. I'm not afraid of that. The genetically modified tomato, I'm not afraid of it either. Because what is the purpose of a tomato? To a tomato, not to you. I know, you say BLT. What's the purpose of a tomato to a tomato plant?
To grow.
To grow.
Reproduction. It's the seeds. When it's ripe, then there's a gene to trigger the tomato to rot, so it spreads the tomato plant seeds. The problem is, we want it ripe, but we don't want it to rot. So Monsanto, remember, the way in which they do tomatoes now is they select a variety that doesn't taste very good, but it ships great. And so they plant it, they pick it green, they put it in a box, they ship it to you, it ripens in the box, so it ripens with what it's around, and it tastes like the box. And when it arrives here, it's pink, it looks like a tomato, it smells a little bit like a tomato, it's lost a lot, and it's not bruised, but it has absolutely no taste. My mother, I saw her on Skype eating a tomato sandwich with a beef steak tomato, and I said, that looks so good, and she said, I said, is it good? And she said, well, it's wet. I said, what do you mean? She said, the tomato looks like a tomato, smells like a tomato, but it tastes wet or red. It certainly doesn't taste like a tomato. Not like when we grew them as kids. So what Monsanto did was they selected a variety that tastes good. They knocked out the rotting gene and put in a fish gene. They could have put in any gene, that was just the easiest for them. Doesn't taste like fish or anything like that. It just doesn't trigger the rot when it's ripe. So it ripens on the vine. They pack it carefully, and if it doesn't get bruised, it won't start rotting until, a week or a week and a half after it ripens. So they get here, they taste good, they're ripe, they stay ripe, and they don't rot as quickly when you buy them. Like that yesterday, I went and bought some beautiful strawberries. Do you know by this morning they had started rotting?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were ripe, and they have a rotting gene to release strawberry seeds. I was so disappointed. I got 1 day on 2 quarts of strawberries. You can't eat that many that quick. Alright, so remember, there are 2 reactions to genetically modified foods, and they're both irrational. 1, the United States response, the Bush administration says you do not need to label genetically modified food. That if the farmer wants to plant it and sell it and put it in routes, they don't have to say this food is genetically modified. That pisses me off. It's called America. We get to choose. You can choose to eat it or not eat it. And there have been big accidents. Remember genetically modified corn. They insected. Remember, corn is very expensive to grow because you have to put so much ammonia. And then when you get the ear of corn and it ripens, insects and worms begin eating it. Do you want to eat an ear of corn that's got a big old worm that ate 1/3 of it already? Most people do not. They want a beautiful, pure ear of corn. So Monsanto knocked out a gene and put in a gene that produces an insecticide, a natural insect gene that an insect makes to repel other insects.
They don't eat corn.
And what's wrong with that? Well, the USDA said there is a tiny, even though you can't taste it, there's a tiny bit of insecticide in every kernel. And we don't know what that will do to people. So we forbid it for human consumption, but you can feed it to a chicken or a cow or a hog. And truthfully, it seems incomprehensible that would be a problem. And it hasn't been. But the problem is this, it's been out 20 years. When a farmer plants that, it's more expensive, they have to pay for the corn. And they also plant regular corn, and when they finish combining the regular one, they head for the next one. They commingle the 2 kinds of corn, one of which is forbidden for human consumption. So about 10 years ago, Taco Bell had to recall all of their homemade Taco Bell kits and close their stores for a day because the shells were tested by a university lab and found to have the insecticide corn in it. And another bad thing was we now know that the weeds around the field planted with this corn now have the insecticide gene. And we don't know how it moved. Maybe bees or something, we don't know. So there are problems with genetically modified foods and crops. But in this country, you have no choice. There is nothing that labels it, and you just have to trust that the company you buy it from says they don't buy it, because there is no law that makes them label it.
Whole Foods is going to start labeling their
Who?
products. Whole Foods.
Yeah.
They also use USDA certified and tell everybody their food's organic. You have to be careful that it's California certified if you go to Whole Foods. But anyway, now the European Union is just the opposite. You can do all the research you want on genetically modified crops and foods, but you cannot sell it in the European Union, period. So we have two ridiculous options. One, no one will tell us and we have no choice. The other one, it may be good for you, but no matter what, you can't buy it. So somewhere in between there might be the good. I don't know. Anyway, just wanting you to know what the words mean, because there will be a quiz question on it. What is a legal law and a scientific law? We've already been over it. Scientific laws are how the universe functions. They don't change. They're immutable. They are true in the past. They were true in the past. They are true now, and they always will be. And the last word in our definition of science is that the universe is everything that exists, whether or not your senses can detect it. So that leads us to the last 25 points of the essay. And that is, what is the nature, character, or process of science? How does science get to a scientific law? A scientific humorist Does that sound like an oxymoron to you? What's an oxymoron?
Something that
A word
contradicts.
that says something but means the opposite. Right? Like military intelligence. Not many people that follow military laws are intelligent. They don't require, or it's not a part of the military to take the initiative. All right? Scientists are hardly ever humorous. So this is an oxymoron. So a scientific humorist once said that science is a series of previously accepted inaccuracies. Think about that. We once accepted it as truth. We now know we're inaccurate. Pretty good. All right? So give some other processes of science. Well, one, it's not linear. You don't come up with a hypothesis, form some experiments, find out you're right, and it becomes a theory. You perform a couple of hundred other experiments, and the theory is found to be true, and you make it a scientific law. If that was true, we would have more than 7 scientific laws in 1100 years. It is a bunch of backward circles, where we get a hypothesis, we perform some experiments, and we think we're right, we make a theory, and somebody does it better and finds out we were wrong, and we have to restate our hypothesis and retest. So it is a bunch of backward circles or revisions. The more we know, the more we find out we need a better experiment and we need to revise. So 2 things you must have in your essay about this. Science is not a straight line. It is not linear from hypothesis to theory to scientific law. And it's in constant revision. And it's not history. History you can memorize. In 1776, this happened. Will it ever change? No. Science is not. Science changes all the time. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of science changing. It'll be the 3rd one. Remember, hope wasn't, now it is scientific. All right, caffeine. When first discovered, the caffeine molecule, the advertisers said that caffeine would make you pay attention better. It would allow you to organize your thoughts better, and that you would have better reasoning capability, if you had products containing caffeine. And people believed it. And then, in the 50s, they discovered that the caffeine molecule is very similar in structure to one of the DNA bases. And they said it's only logical that women who are pregnant should not drink a lot of caffeine or any at all because it might cause birth defects. And in the 60s, we discovered that certain groups of people, when drink a large amount of coffees, get an arrhythmia or rapid heart beating of the heart, and therefore people with heart disease should not drink coffee, which broke my dad's heart because he had a triple bypass and he had to go off coffee, and he always told me decaf was never anything worth drinking. If you don't get the jolt, he said, why? Stick your finger in the socket. Alright? So, yeah, he's crazy sometimes. Alright, then, in the 1990s, they did a study of nurses. Name a group of people that drinks more coffee. They're on a 12-hour shift. You'll notice they'll have 3 pots apiece. And they discovered what your mama said. What's your mama say about everything? In moderation, honey. Don't go over the top. So what they discovered was that 1 to 4, even 5 cups of coffee a day is completely harmless to everyone. It has no representation, no connection, no correlation, no causality to birth defects or heart attacks. Anyone can drink 1 to 4, almost 5 cups of coffee a day without any harm coming to them. In moderation. Now, in the year 2010, they said there was an aberration in the experiment, and that a few nurses developed an arrhythmia and had spontaneous heart attacks. So what they discovered was a certain very rare genetic subtype, when in excessive amounts of caffeine are taken in, have an arrhythmia and can have a spontaneous heart attack. But there's no way to really test people for that. But just remember what Mama said. Everything in moderation. There is no need for 4 pots of coffee. 4 cups is fine. Alright, so that is a thing where they've done scientific studies and they found different results, and they have gone back and forth of whether it's good or bad. Here's another one. In the 1940s, we discovered a byproduct of oxidative metabolism. That means metabolism, breakdown of food in an oxygen environment, produces chemicals called free radicals. Free radicals destroy DNA. Damaged DNA is what causes cancer. So in the 60s, late 60s and early 70s, all doctors began saying, you know, maybe this is a cause for cancer. And the biochemists discovered that antioxidant vitamins neutralize free radicals in the laboratory. So they said, all of us should take an excess of antioxidant vitamins, more than is needed for our metabolism, to reduce the amount of damage by free radicals. So people were supposed to take an extra vitamin C and a beta carotene. And for 20 years, my doctor said, take an extra vitamin C and a beta carotene. And then, in 1990, a study came out and said that over 20 years, they had studied this, and there was no significant difference in cancer rates in those that took antioxidants and those who didn't. So everybody was confused and disappointed. And it took the Scandinavians, which they do incredible research. In the year 2000, they found out something different. And the recommendation is now currently different. They divided a huge number of Scandinavians in a 10-year study into 3 groups. One group got the normal Scandinavian diet in Norway. The second group got the normal Scandinavian diet, but an extra vitamin C and an extra beta carotene pill every day. The third group got the normal Scandinavian diet, but instead of getting it in pill form, they ate extra fruits and vegetables to give them the same amount as the ones that took the pills. and only one group had a significant reduction in cancer. Which one?
Vitamins, vegetables.